just here for support.
Oh, God. Hey everybody, welcome back to Purple Honey Farms, and today's video is going to be a little bit different. A lot of you have asked what happened back in the summer, and a lot of you know us personally, and so you kind of wanted a more in-depth story, I guess, of Justin's COVID battle. So we're just gonna kind of ramble, try not to ramble too much, but we're just gonna break it down, our dates and what all happened without trying to get into too much detail because we'd be here way too long. But so we're gonna kind of get started on this. Justin's been in a few of my videos.
Couple.
Yeah, one or two of them, and I think he kind of likes it, but
I don't think the camera likes me.
But so we're gonna take it all the way back to August. August the 13th, me and the kids, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, now it is.
Yeah, me and the kids went to Gatlinburg, and on the 15th, a couple days later,
a couple days later,
Justin joined us. It was our anniversary trip, and we went up with some family members, and it was a really great time. And so that was all the way back in August. And then August the 20th, we have our little cheat sheet of dates if you see us looking down. August the 20th, we came home from Gatlinburg, and the next day we worked outside quite a bit. We actually thought that the reason that we weren't feeling good was because it was so hot outside that day.
Oh, yeah.
We went and we set up some deer cams and worked our lease land a little bit.
Yeah, worked on some stands. We was in the woods all day, probably a good 6 hours, maybe.
Yeah, it was
something
a long
like
time.
That. And we got really hot, and we thought, well, okay,
that's all that it is that's why we don't feel good.
Mm-hmm. So
we came home, we drank a lot of water, we even had dinner with my family, and we just thought that we got a little bit too hot. The next day we felt rough. We felt really rough again, and we were like, dang, we really did too much out there. And over the next couple of days, it just got worse and worse. And it was coming up on time for Justin to go back to work. And actually, I think you were supposed to go back to work on the 24th. And
yes, on a Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday the 24th. And you felt so terrible.
Yeah, well, Monday, I started running a fever. I think probably 101, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then got up Tuesday morning, made a phone call into work. I can't come. I was just drained, fever, and I'd gotten up to about 102. Yeah. And with the COVID and everything, we decided best for me not to go to work just in case. So laid out from work and
went and got tested that day.
I went and got tested that day. That was on Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, we both felt bad. Mm-hmm. But just us, not the kids. I think you ran a little bit of a fever.
Yeah, I just didn't feel very well, and I just wanted to sleep. I was really tired.
Yeah.
And then about, I don't know, the 28th, 29th, somewhere in there, the kids started getting really whiny, so we just assumed that that they had it too, because I had it, you had it, and we were staying indoors. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't do anything. We had, groceries delivered to the house from friends and family, and my mom was dropping stuff in the garage for us, and so I mean it was
quarantine.
Just like, it was quarantine life. We were kind of used to it after the past 2 years. But he continued to feel worse and worse, and then
Thursday, they called. I went to a local urgent care. They called and they said, okay, you tested positive. They said, just be careful. Basically, nothing you can do at this point. Just stay quarantined, stay away from everybody. We
already
we're already
were.
doing that. Stay hydrated. We're doing that.
Just rest and stay
Yeah.
home. That's pretty much all they told us to do.
And by that time, I had started to get achy, really, joints, muscles, everything hurt, and really, really weak. Didn't want to get out of bed. So, as that progressed, I guess my chest started feeling a little heavy.
Yeah.
I think I started complaining
Yeah.
about it a little bit.
And you were cold all the time. You had a fever like crazy, and just didn't want to get up. So on the 30th, I had this really bad feeling, and I said, you need to walk around, and we need to get us a pulse ox. Had a great friend that was getting ready to run through, and so she stopped at CVS and got us a pulse ox, and we took it, and his oxygen was pretty low. It was in the low 90s at that point. And so I was making him get up and walk around the house every 30 minutes or so. And then it got to the point where it was just too much to even really walk around the house. And we had made the decision that if it dropped below 90, that we were going to take him just to get checked out, make sure that everything was okay. And it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon or so.
Yeah. Excuse me. About middle of the day, I think.
It dropped.
It dropped significantly, and I hit 85.
Yeah.
And that's when I looked at you and I said,
Time to go.
We need to go.
So, like I said, we thought that it was just going to be a routine. He was going to go in, get some oxygen, maybe a round of antibiotics or something. We didn't really know what we could do at that point, but we just thought that it was going to be a routine because everybody around was, they'd go into the hospital, they'd stay a couple hours, they'd get some oxygen, and then they'd send them back home. And that obviously didn't happen with us.
Well, she took me to the ER, and she didn't come in. They wouldn't let her in anyways. So I walked in, signed in at the desk, talked to them about what was going on. Then they put me in a seat, the emergency room seat. I sit there for, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. And I don't know what happened. Something happened. I started to really feel bad. And about this time, they had moved me into a room just set up off to the side there. They put me in there. I was by myself. Wasn't nobody in there with me. It's probably a 12 by 12 room. It wasn't big. But anyways, I sit there and I started sweating. Just, I don't know.
Profusely.
I mean, it was bad. I remember I took a picture on my phone because I had a puddle up under me. And
through all your training, you knew that was a bad sign with your heart.
Yeah, I knew through my training with work as a first responder that is definitely a serious sign. So I yelled out there to the nurses. They walked in and they didn't even look at the puddle. They just looked at me, and I guess I looked so bad they rushed me straight into the emergency room. Started taking readings on me, started to ask me questions and stuff, hooked me up to air immediately because at that point I had gotten down into the lower 80s. So he just went ahead and put me on air. Let's see, I sit there for maybe another 30 minutes and they found me a bed or room that they had moved me to.
Inside of the ER.
Yeah, inside. So basically quarantined me away from everybody else. After that,
They said they were going to keep you for observation, and they were going to admit you. And so at that point, I said, well, there's no use in me sitting out in the parking lot because that's where I had been for the past, 4 hours or so.
By that time, they decided to keep me. They decided it was going to keep me overnight.
Yeah, so I went home and he FaceTimed me a couple times throughout the night. And finally, you were there, about 24 hours or so before they actually got you a room because our hospitals were just overcrowded. And I mean, there were no beds, no rooms, no nothing at that point.
So I was there about 24 hours, got moved to ICU and put me in a room in ICU, started moving my oxygen up, and I don't remember.
And that was on September the 3rd that you were moved to the ICU.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't remember what, I don't remember what I was on, because I wasn't on the wall there. It didn't have enough. So I was
It was the mask.
Yeah, I was on the mask, and I don't remember what the number was. It was high. Anyways, because I had, at this point,
yeah, it was like 4 or 5 liters. Like it was.
No, it was. Oh yeah. It was because you can do 5 or so on the wall. It was. I can't remember what it was. It was high. Mm. Then we were what, maybe 3 days in there like that.
And it seemed like everything was getting better. Yes. And then they started doing the mask. What was that thing called? BiPAP.
Yeah.
They started doing BiPAP, and they were doing that for a couple of days off and on, just for a couple of hours, and everything was looking good. And then our nurse called me, and she was like, I don't understand, the numbers aren't good. And I was in constant contact with the nurses and everything once he got on BiPAP, because BiPAP kind of makes you a little bit loopy, where you kind of going in and out of consciousness because it's just so much pressure. I remember you fussing about how much pressure it is on your face.
There's a lot.
And it kind of makes you a little bit claustrophobic. So they typically give you something just to keep you calm.
Yeah, and they had to.
So then September 12th came around.
Yeah, and so I guess from my standpoint, what I remember, laying in the bed, and I remember, just talking to the nurses. I'm like, okay, well, because they started working me down in air, and I had gotten onto the wall there, which was a good sign. It means we were heading in the right direction.
Around the 11th.
Yeah. And I had, been on the phone with you earlier that day. Mm-hmm. Everything seemed to be okay, other than I just felt like my chest was a little bit heavy.
Yeah. And that was the night before, on the 11th.
Right. I remember laying in there. I don't know what happened. I started to, I guess, kind of black out. And I remember hitting the button and hitting the call, like, something is not right. I'm gonna need somebody in here. And that's all I remember from there on till I woke up at a different hospital. And the rest of it, you'll have to tell, because I was just taking a nap.
Yeah, so September 12th, like you said, on the 11th, everything was looking good. He was coming down, and then his nurse called me that afternoon, and she said, I just got his blood results back, and it's off. I don't really understand what's going on. We'll just have to play it by ear tomorrow. And I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, I don't know yet. I think looking back at it, I think she really did know what it meant, but she just didn't want to tell me that you were spiraling at that point. The 12th, that morning, I woke up from a phone call from Justin, and he said, don't panic, but something's wrong. And I said, well, what do you mean something's wrong? He said, the nurses and doctors are coming in here. I can't talk. Something's wrong, but it's going to be okay. And then about 5 minutes later, the doctor called me, and that terrified me because the doctors never call. The nurses always call. And he said, I have just went in there and spoke with your husband, and he is refusing to go on the ventilator. And you need to talk him into going on the ventilator, or he's not going to make it through the day. And I just remember being in shock, really, because, I mean, I had just talked to him, and I had spoken with him and the nurses all day the day before, and we were cutting his air down, and then I hadn't been awake 15 minutes, and it's a life or death situation.
Really, I somewhat remember that conversation, but not to the extent where I felt like maybe I would have made a great decision or what. I know I was scared to ventilate.
He said that you were refusing.
Yeah.
And you were very adamant about it. So he gave me 5 minutes. He said, I'm going to walk back in there in 5 minutes. And if he hasn't changed my mind, then, there's nothing more that I can do. We'll play it how it goes throughout the day. But if I were you, try to talk him into it. So I remember just calling him and being like, hey, this is what we have to do. This is our next step, because I have a great friend that is a respiratory therapist, and she had been kind of coaching me throughout everything, saying, this is what we're looking at next, and this is the possibility of what's coming next, and this is what's coming next. And I remember that she said, if things turn wrong, it's going to go quick, and we had to be ready to make the hard decisions. And that if they said that it was time to go on the ventilator, then it was time to go. So we made that hard decision in less than 5 minutes.
But I had known that, sadly, on the ventilator, my chances were very slim.
Yeah.
Just as it is, it's just not a good.
Yeah.
It just doesn't give you good odds to when you get on the ventilators, and so I was plenty reluctant about it, because I didn't want to be on it.
Yeah.
And I thought I was getting better. And shockingly, no.
Yeah. So he was on the ventilator for a couple of days with really no change or anything like that. And throughout this whole time, I still am unable to see him, talk to him. I mean, at this point,
well, I was out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were out, but I wasn't able to go into the hospital whatsoever. I wasn't able to go into the hospital until day 24 or so. Finally, they released him from infectious disease, but that's on further down the road. So on the 14th, which was 2 days after you had been intubated, he had his first chest tube on the right side.
Because my lung collapsed, right?
Yeah, your lung collapsed. And so we had the first chest tube placed. And that was rough, because I still was not allowed in for any of that. But they got you stable just fine, and they continued on. And then the 18th happened.
Well, how often was you on the phone, like all day, or like?
I was calling they only wanted to talk to, they have their own schedule, where they call the families typically once a schedule,
shift.
A shift, yeah. They called once a shift unless something went wrong. But I, being the person that I am, I couldn't stand that. So I would call first thing in the morning. I would call right around lunchtime, and then I'd call about 3:30, 4, and then I'd call again right before I went to bed. So, and they really got to know my voice, and every time that I call, they were like, "Oh, hey, it's you again." but everybody was really understanding with that. And then the 18th happened. For no rhyme or reason, your SATs just kept dropping. And SATs is when your your breathing, your air, your saturation count. They just kept dropping for no reason. And you know, of course, by this time I'm well past my quarantine time, and you know, we've already, you know, the kids were already back. Hudson was going to day school and everything like that again, and we were.
It's 3 weeks later.
Yeah, we were, you know, trying to live the most normal life that we could here without him being here. I guess the only thing that was good in that retrospect was that, you know, we're so used to you working, you know, swing shifts and being gone a whole lot for your job that, you know, it wasn't a terrible upset at that point for the kids, because, you know, it just seemed like you were working on third shift or something, because it had only been a little over 2 weeks, 3 weeks right at it. So, you know, I guess they just assumed that you were on third shift. So the 18th came and you wouldn't saturate. So they actually called me in and told me it was time to say goodbye the first time. So I went in, and I remember his mom was in the parking lot because they would only let one of us up. And, you know, my mom had the kids, and dad and his sister were all out in the parking lot, and just everybody was just praying. I remember texting, you know, my group of friends, you know, which, you know, just pray. And that's all that we could do. And I sat up there for hours. The nurses let me just sit up there until, I guess it was probably 10 o'clock at night or so. They called me about 5:36 because we hadn't even had dinner yet. I remember that because I was getting ready to leave the kids' house, leave my parents' house, and take the kids. We were going to go out to dinner because we hadn't left the house since Gatlinburg. And I was going to take them out to dinner, and I got that call, and Dad rushed me over there because I was a wreck. I couldn't drive. So I sat in the ICU for probably 30 minutes before they'd even let me back there, and I was just crying with my ICU, with his ICU nurse, and we just sat there and cried together. And so then like I said, I wasn't there until about 10 o'clock, and then I just had this relief hit me about 9:30, and you started to saturate for just out of nowhere. They flipped you, which it took eight people to flip one man. I was very confused at that, but I guess it was because you already had the chest tube, and they were trying to be so gentle because of that chest tube and everything. But the pronin, which is when you lay on your stomach, it saved you that day. So that was a hard day, and I actually didn't even come home that night. Me and the kids spent the night over at my mom and dad's because I couldn't.
And they let you come up.
Yeah.
To see me.
Yeah. I was there for hours.
And then.
At about 10 o'clock, they told me that I had to leave.
Was you the only one that came up?
Yeah, they wouldn't let anybody else in.
Okay.
So I FaceTime with your mom a couple of times throughout that. Let her talk to you. And then the 25th was Tucker's birthday.
Yeah, I missed it.
And also around, I don't know, I guess it was about his birthday or so, they started letting me come for more regular visits. And I tried to about once every 2 or 3 days to let your mom go up there too. So we would swap off a little bit. And then the 26th, I don't even know how to how to go through this day. The 26th was literally the worst day of my life so far. It was supposed to be Justin's mom's day to go visit, and she just had this feeling that I needed to go up there. And it was a Saturday. Everything bad always happened on the weekends. I think it was a Saturday. It was either Saturday or Sunday. Everything always bad happened on weekends. And so I had mentioned my friend earlier that taught me about respiratory. She had taught me how to read the monitors. And so I had made it a habit that, first of all, I have a log. I mean, it is thick, of every single call that I had with every single nurse. And, you know, I had them read off all his ventilator settings and his rates, his saturation rates. I wanted a book, and I made one.
You was doctoring.
I was. And, you know, of course, every night I would sit there and I'd text all of my nurse friends and be like, what does this mean? And what does this mean? And,
which, by the way, we have a lot of friends that are nurses and work in different fields, respiratory.
Yeah. We are extremely blessed with that.
Radiology, everything. And so they kind of help.
Yeah, I mean,
get you through a little bit of that, explaining different things.
Golly, I learned so much through all this. But anyway, so I walk in and I immediately noticed that there was something wrong. The ventilator was beeping, and which our hospital is extremely small. And so I don't fault anybody for anything. But, you know, our respiratory therapists are stretched very thin. And so because of that, you know, she was in another room taking care of another patient that was having a hard time. And
it was full.
Yeah.
The ICU was full the whole time I was
slammed.
there.
Yeah, it was slammed.
And they had multiple people with issues that were just
and I mean, not only do you have COVID patients in the ICU, but you have your regular ICU patients as well. You know, from anything from cancer to, you know, a car accident, anything. It was just full 24/7. I mean, so anyways, I walk in and I automatically see that there is something wrong with his pressures. And so I called out to my friend that was working at the desk that day, and she said, you know, yeah, I've already paged for respiratory to come in there. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking to him, even though I know he's out of it, but I'm talking to him and I'm going, no, something's wrong. You need to, you know, you got to fight this. You have to fight this. And she came in and she was like, oh gosh, something's wrong. And so we're yanking the pulse oxes and the oxygen monitor. I mean, we're yanking everything off and throwing stuff back and forth. And, you know, I was a nurse that day. You know, I'm reading this off to her. She's reading this off to me. We're trying to think. And, you know, at the whole time, you know, the doctors have already been called at this point to come. And like I said, small hospital, but, you know, we knew that they were on their way. It's just we had to be the doctors at that moment. And the next thing I know, he's just not saturating at all. And it's plummeting. And I mean, it plummeted down far. You know, before the doctors got there, I think at one point I saw it in the 40s, and then he decided, she, the respiratory therapist, decided to start bagging you. And so she was using the bag pump, trying to get everything, you know, keep him oxygenated until, you know, the doctors could come in and we could really figure out what was going on. The x-ray techs, had already been called, and they were on their way up. So they took an x-ray right there, and then while we were bagging, you know, we had to keep you still for a minute, but they were doing everything that they could, and that's when we finally saw it, that your left lung had collapsed. And so the doctor on call was a good 20 minutes out. So they called the ER doctor, and y'all, I've never seen a doctor run before, but he ran. He
Upstairs.
ran all the way up the stairs, all the way up to the 4th floor, because that's where our ICU is, and he ran from the 1st floor to the 4th floor. And I mean, he was in full sprint running through that ICU, and he performed the second chest tube on his left side, and the nurses, of course, they pushed me out into the little corridor right there at that point, and they said that when they cut, you can actually hear the air leave his chest.
Well, now, but I coded.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What had happened was when his lung had collapsed, and when the respiratory was bagging him, his chest cavity was filling with air, and it was so much air in his chest that it actually squeezed his heart to the point that it could not beat. And so Justin actually coded for 5 minutes. Thankfully, we have another respiratory therapist friend, and she happened to be working that night. And I remember she was the one that asked me to get out of the room, and she looked at me and she said, I'll do everything that I can. And I remember, I was outside of the room, but I could still see in a little bit, and I remember her crying, and I remember her being on top of him just pounding. And like I said, it was the worst day of my life. I couldn't breathe. I was crying. I had another nurse just sitting there, trying to hold me and console me and rubbing my back, and it was hard. But at the same time, I had been there every day, and I had called these people, and I know these people in our personal lives, and so it was a community around us, and we were all sitting there praying together and just holding each other, letting the doctors do what they had to do. And I remember when they finally came out, I remember that the girl that was performing CPR and everything, I remember her actually hugging the doctor and saying thank you to him. And it was kind of like a sigh of relief when they said that you were back with us. It was touchy, but you were back with us. And I remember just so many hugs, and everybody was a little bit lighter after that happened. And they let me stay for a little bit, but by the time that was happening, visiting hours were already over. But I think they hid me from the charge nurse for a little bit so that I could stay for a little bit longer. It was just an extremely scary day. And again, you just sit there the entire time. You pray. You don't have anything else you can do. You just pray and cry and lean on your faith, lean on your people. And I remember after everybody had already left, and I was in the room sitting there, I said, I don't give you permission to leave me, so you better buck up. And so that was that day.
But I praise God every day that we had the right people in the places that they were to work on me, and that is just an amazing thing that we had, the right people that care so much, and just truly amazing people that never gave up on me. Even though they had probably seen so much of a bad situation like mine, but they didn't give up on me. So I'm very thankful and very happy to have had those people in my life. So I don't know what else to say about that.
So so a couple days went by, and you evened out. It was a good couple of days, and typically with ventilation patients, they like for you to have your tracheotomy and your PEG, your feeding tube, placed at 2 weeks, because after 2 weeks, oral health starts to go down, and it gets a little bit trickier. You're more susceptible to infectious disease and all this different stuff. So so at that 2 week mark, I started advocating for a tracheotomy. It didn't happen for a few more days. It didn't happen until the 30th, because it was coming up on the weekend, and I said, we are not going through another weekend. I will not, because on the 18th they called me in, and then the next weekend they called, was the bad weekend. It was the really bad weekend, and so we were coming up on the next weekend, and I remember it was a Thursday when you got your tracheotomy, because I started fighting like that Monday. I was like, because Sunday was the 2 week mark, and you actually didn't get it until that Thursday after. Yeah, because it was a good little struggle to get that through, but I think that the most clear thing that I can say for anybody that is the family member to the person going through this is advocacy. Like, you have to stay on top of everything and advocate for your loved one, because the doctors try. But they have so many patients, and they're so overwhelmed by everything that's going on. Like, you have to really, keep up with your dates and push for what you want.
Because I think you had several.
Yeah, I had a few
arguments with.
Yeah, I had a few tips.
Different doctors and.
Yeah.
Charge nurses, maybe.
Yeah, but yeah. So he did actually get the tracheotomy done on the 30th. And from that point on, most insurances, probably like 95% insurances from what I understand, you have a 2 week grace period of healing. I think it's 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks or 1 week? I don't really remember. It was only 1 week. Yeah, you have a 1 week grace period to be moved out of the ICU. And from where he had been on the ventilator for so long, actually had to find somewhere else to go. And so we, in that time period, we started to wake him up, and that was a very long and hard process. But you have to.
Did it take a week?
It was well over a week.
Yeah. Till I was really.
It was almost 2 weeks before you were really conscious of everything.
And I'd already been moved to another hospital at this point.
Yeah, you were moved to
about an hour away.
Yeah, to another hospital on the 8th. But in the meantime, at our local hospital, they put you through a rigmarole of different tests, brain activity scans, just everything really. And from where you had coded, I was told by a couple of different people not to get my hopes up, because he was more than likely going to be brain dead. And
good thing was I didn't have much activity up there to begin with, so
don't let him fool you. He's very bright. But it was hard. It was hard to see him struggle. And I remember I went in one day, and you have to remember, I was there every day from the minute that visiting hours started until they kicked me out. So visiting hours started at 1, so I was there from 1 to 6 every single day, all day long. And
she's a machine.
And
she came to visit every day, an hour one way. We got 3 kids at home that she homeschools. She took care of that, she had mom. She had to help kind of keep, because I know she was a mess during all this, so you had to keep her straight and keep yourself straight, drive down there an hour one way, stay 6 hours, and then drive back an hour.
Yeah.
And she's a machine. I don't know how she did it.
Lots of help, lots of help, lots of prayer, not much sleep. But it just, so, and you were on some really, really hard drugs. So, I mean, it was going to take a while to get all of that out of your system. And, at one point they almost made me stop coming in because he started running a fever so bad. And, I was talking to one of the nurses, and he was his night nurse, and he was an excellent nurse as well. And he said, Sandy, you have to think about this. He's on some really, really hard drugs. He doesn't have an infection or anything like that. He's detoxing. He's coming off all of these drugs. He's gonna spike a fever, and they're, that's just how his body is trying to get rid of all of this stuff, and that's how he's gonna wake up. And we had some really touchy days, just you trying to wake up as well. I remember blood pressure just
spiked.
I mean, it was ungodly. Like I have never seen numbers like that before in my life. And
What did you say? It was 230 over 160, 170?
Yeah, it was insane. Like I don't even know. They had maxed out on blood pressure pills, and I remember I was talking to one of the nurses, and they said, I can't give him anymore, or we're gonna have some really bad adverse effects to this. I said, what are my options? I said, if you don't give it to him, what's going to happen? She said, well, he's either going to have a heart attack or a stroke. I said, so it's heart attack or a stroke or adverse reactions from that, and we already don't know if he has brain function at this point or not. Do what you got to do. And she said, well, I'll call the pharmacy and see what I can do, but I don't know if I can do anything at this point. And so they did that, and I remember having the conversation of having to make sure that they did more oral care, because I was scared that his oral care was going down when he had the vent. So, I mean, like I said, advocation is the only way that you're going to get anything done in hospitals. But I mean, so they gave him more, and it was terrifying, because out of all the days that we were at our local hospital, I was there, like I said, almost every day, except for the few days that his mom traded places with me to go see him. And I remember, like I said, I was there the entire visiting hour schedule, and where his room was, I could see most of the hallway, and there was nobody visiting these people. And I understand that it's COVID, but I couldn't fathom being in the hospital, or him being in the hospital, and nobody coming to visit. It broke my heart every day to not see family members coming to visit their loved ones. And so then it made me think, well, if they're not coming to see them, then nobody's advocating for them the way, because you don't see everything when you're on the phone, but when you're in there, then you see exactly what's wrong, and you're able to judge things. But so anyways, on let's see, the 8th, on October the 8th, you were moved to another hospital. Like you said, it was about an hour away, and they started doing rehab to get off the trach and off the vent and everything.
Once I woke up,
yeah.
Didn't take long once I woke up, but what the hard part was just trying to communicate, because I really had no form of communication other than shake my head yes or no.
Yeah.
Because I had the trach in, I had the medicines are still, it took me days. Like, she'd be talking to me, and I'd have to,
it would take him hours to process some things
and get it repeated back a lot. And I remember one day I just looked up and they had the calendar right in front of my bed. And it was like, I don't know, October I don't know, 20th or something. And I just looking at it and just staring at it like, October. Because I thought it was September. And the first thing that went through my mind was I missed my oldest son's birthday. And it just crushed me.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember my reaction at that point. I just remember
it was tough.
It just crushed me.
Yeah.
You know, because then I really realized that, okay, I have been out. Like,
yeah,
I haven't.
And somebody had asked you, in which I still don't think that even when you noticed the date that it really hit you. Somebody asked you, you know, how old the kids were, and you said 7, 4, and 2, and I said no, and you said yeah, and I said no, it's October.
Yeah.
You know, he's 8 now, and it was like it just consumed him, and it was really, really upsetting.
Yeah, that one was hard, but definitely the hardest part was the next week, trying to get to where I could actually get the trach out.
Yeah.
Because I remember waking up and I was so thirsty. I wanted to just drink the ocean. I was just,
Yeah.
And I couldn't have anything. The only thing I could have was these little swabs. They were flavored.
Lemon
And
flavored
and
swabs.
I had the best nurses, man, because they would come in there and they'd walk by the hallway and they'd just kind of look in the rooms. And I'd throw my hand up and here she comes. Bring my swab.
And they kept them in the freezer. I remember they kept them in the freezer because after they got warm, they were no good no more.
I thought I was going to have to go through some kind of detox for those things. I didn't got addicted to them.
Yeah.
But, you know, everything went good. We pulled the trach out.
Yeah, the ventilator was removed from the room on the 24th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a good day. And then the vent, or not the vent, the trach out, and they did x-rays the next day. So they pulled it out one day, did x-rays the next day, and everything went good. They made me swallow a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it was a bunch of tests for a couple of days.
For a couple of days. Everything went great, and I started off with applesauce because I really could not eat a lot.
And also through that, they gave you the speaking valve too.
Yeah, and the speaking valve.
That was nice.
Yeah, and which made communication so much easier.
Yeah, because he was shaking really bad at this point.
I couldn't text. I couldn't. I shook so bad.
He shook so bad he locked his phone, and I had to literally go and bring his phone home, try to unlock it, and then oh gosh, it was terrible.
And then you messed up.
It was terrible
because I lost everything.
Yeah, I had to reset the
pictures.
entire phone, and we lost everything.
But
from his phone,
minute problems compared to everything else we had been through. So it was. Anyways, learning how to feed myself again was really tough. I think I wore my food for the first week maybe.
It was rough.
It had changed my gown twice a day. I mean, I was dropping it so bad. It was terrible. So then I got moved from there. Got moved to a rehab.
The first week in November.
Yeah.
And at the rehab hospital though, you were able to stand there.
I did stand up twice.
You took 2 steps. Yeah. It was more like a lean.
Yeah.
It was more like a lean.
Like I fell into some steps.
But you were able to sit up on the side of the bed.
You're right. I was able to sit up on the side
and you
of the
moved to a chair for a little bit.
Which was really bad because I guess where I laid in bed was so dizzy. Every time I sat up on my own, the room just spun, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I had a physical therapist down there at that
Yeah.
hospital.
He was great. Are you talking about the first thing
Yeah,
that you said to him?
yeah, I told him
Yeah.
I was gonna walk across the room.
Yeah, he said, I'm going home. Well, he couldn't talk at the time because they still had the trach in.
Yep.
But he said, he told him, he said, Justin, we're gonna try to set you up. And he said, and he kept pointing towards the door. And he said, oh, you're gonna leave? And he said,
Yep.
And he said, I'm going home. Like, he mouthed it to where we could understand. He said, I'm going home. And the physical therapist said,
Oh, he just laughed.
He said, yeah, he started laughing. And he said, if you get to the door, I'll let you go home.
Yeah, he did it.
And he didn't even stand up that day.
No, I tried to, and I about fell out of bed.
Yeah, he about passed out trying to stand.
I did, and then I don't know. I had to take a nap, about a 4-hour nap after that, because it just honestly it took so much out of me. I was so weak and just frail. I guess. Well, I was on the feeding tube for how long? 57 days.
It was a long time.
Yeah, like no, 60 or.
Well, you were on the feeding
days
tube. Let's see, from from the September the 12th, from September the 12th until yeah
November almost.
Yeah, from right before you left, you started eating. So October the 20th or so, 24th, somewhere in there. That's a long time.
Anyways, it was it was rough.
Mm-hmm. And then we went to the actual rehab, which was closer to home, but still about 20 minutes from the house.
Yeah.
And we had to quarantine again when you were moved from one hospital to the next. Every single time we had to quarantine for a couple of days. And
I had to quarantine for 2 weeks there.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned how to walk again.
Mm-hmm.
And then they gave me some really heavy spoons, things like that to eat with. Started getting a little better with that. Again, had to, and at that point also, my bed sores. I had bed sores where I had laid around so much, and so we treating, working on different things, and I was getting better. Started walking down the hallway. Started with a walker, and then by the time I come out of quarantine, I was able to really get up and move again.
Yeah, and that's when you finally got to see the kids.
Yes, and
our friend worked there, and so we kind of, she kind of helped us get a ground floor room, which was
by myself.
By himself, and that was marvelous.
Amazing.
Which, I mean, he was, the youngest person
by 30 years,
at least 30 years. So they thought that.
But I'm old at heart, so I'll fit in perfect there.
Yeah, and you made friends with some
really
really sweet people up there.
Yeah.
But had a big window so the kids and I could come out and sit on the lawn and kind of, we would FaceTime, but we were sitting right there beside each other.
It was like being in prison, with you put the hand on the glass and the kids was outside.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. But
that was tough, but it was so amazing to see the kids, because I went so long without seeing them, and it just broke my heart. But then, got out of quarantine 2 weeks.
And they made some special amendments for the
did,
kids so that the kids could come visit.
Which was so sweet of them. Anyways, it made them, or allowed us to come in.
Yeah.
Allowed y'all to come in.
Yeah.
Which was just amazing. And first time I saw the kids, I broke down. It was...
I think that the residents in general really enjoyed seeing the kids because they would all line up in the hallway when they knew that we were coming, because we would come about the same time every day, and they would line up right there at the hallway and they'd wave at the kids. It was very sweet. It was,
and anyways, they really got me back to good enough, and anyways, few weeks, I think 3 weeks I was there.
A little over 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah,
a little over 2 weeks. You were there, and you got to come home the week of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the day before Thanksgiving. Yeah. So,
it was a great Thanksgiving.
It really was, and a great Christmas, and
we still have struggles now. Yeah, obviously.
With air, normally I'd be sitting here with Air, but Air's doing really good today.
Yeah.
So
So he wears oxygen pretty much anytime that obviously anytime that he leaves the house, we have our oxygen and our oxygen monitors. He sleeps with oxygen. Even little things around the house, like if he helps me cook or, do anything like that, we have to wear oxygen. But just sitting here having a conversation, for the most part, he does pretty well.
Yeah, we've been on the mend. Very blessed.
Very blessed. And that's all that we really can say is that everybody has been so amazing through all of this. And they call around here, we live in a very small town, he's the miracle. And we've had people from our hospital tell us, there is no other explanation but he being a miracle. And his story has helped our hospital bring quite a bit of life back to our hospital. And we still get calls from random doctors' offices, not just the hospitals, but random doctors' offices, asking, if they can, share our story and talk to us a little bit and, try to learn. Because, even even though we've been here for 2 years with COVID, there's still so much unknown that they want everybody's input and everybody's story so they can compare notes and everything, and and
get better. But through I will have to say the best thing through all of this is the outpouring of love that we've experienced. I mean, just
our community has been amazing.
Oh man, I don't even know how to explain.
We have had people from California,
everywhere, all the way across the country.
We live in Virginia, and so people in I've had letters and cards from Kansas and Florida, Louisiana, like I said, California. I mean, it's overwhelming.
It is.
It's extremely
overwhelming. You don't know. I can only say thank you, but it's not enough. Because thank you is not enough. It's just amazing the amount of love. The guys that I work with, which we always say it's our work family, because I'm there more than I ever am at home. But with the 12-hour rotating shift and overtime, and but man, they have
really
been amazing.
Yeah.
And then the community here and around in our areas, in the churches, this just
and
the
our
amount of
friends.
prayer and more prayer and Dennis, setting their timers every day to pray. It just I can't explain how blessed we are to have those people in our lives. I don't know.
Well, and everybody that helped watch the kids.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I can't. Like it. That more than anything, really, you can't get that back.
No.
You can't thank somebody enough for helping with your kids and help keeping your kids safe and shelter your kids from, keeping your kids happy while all of this is going on.
And the nurses and the doctors and the respiratory therapists and
everybody,
the
really
rehab people, and it goes on and on and on. They treated me at every place. I was at 3 different places. Treated me as if I was their family member.
And they're
I mean,
first.
Honestly, I'm talking just, they came in there and sat down and had deep conversations. And that honestly, you helped me more than you know. I don't know how much to explain how you touch my life, but it's
touch
more.
all of our lives.
Yeah. I mean, definitely.
Yeah.
It really has been amazing to experience all of that. I mean, I just don't.
It's been a wild ride.
Yeah.
It's been a wild ride, but we're finally getting back to to somewhat normal. We'll see.
Close,
Somewhat.
maybe.
I mean, it's a lot of doctors and visits and rehabs and
She calls me an
outpatient.
old man.
I do.
She said I
I have to go take him to the doctor literally like every day. It's kind of funny, but and how much weight did you lose while you were on all that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I lost 70. I think it was 75
Yeah.
pounds, but then I've gained. Of course, I've gained. I don't know, 35 or more
Yeah.
back, but.
So none of his clothes fit. He wasn't eating anything.
Yeah.
I'd take him to the doctor every day.
Well, it's on a feed tube, and you know they give you enough to keep you alive, but other than that, it's I've lost all the muscles got it. So I'm still really weak, and I'm trying. We're getting there.
Yeah, we had to move the bedroom downstairs because he couldn't go up and down the stairs. So
Yeah.
that was
But now,
another thing. Yeah, we
now I'm back.
finally this week we moved the bed back upstairs.
Yeah.
So we're getting there. But through all this, we we don't have any of the answers for COVID or anything like that, and we don't have an opinion on the shot or anything like that, and we won't answer anything like that. But we wanted to get our story out because I know a lot of you were asking about it and wondering about it, and we get calls and messages every single day of how's it going, and all that. So we just wanted to get our story out there, have it all in one place kind of, and it's nice to inform you all, but it was a refresher for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It brought back a lot of memories, good and bad, but it's life, and it's amazing what your brain suppresses, because I remember now, after going back through all of it, some of the emotions and people that were there that you kind of forgotten through all of it, because it was such a long, drawn out, traumatic experience. But now with everything getting back to normal, it's all you can do is say thank you. So
yeah, and thank you, and thank you, because you didn't give up on me, and
never.
You fought for me.
We've been together since middle school. You think that I'd leave him now?
It's like a tick. She's latched on. I never could get her off.
So he says he wouldn't get rid of me.
No. No.
All right, but so that's our story, guys, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.
Bye.